Welcome, everyone. We're gonna let everyone kind of come in. We started it a little early. Give it a minute or so. Get your fluids, stay hydrated. This is seltzer, not hard seltzer. Summer months, got to stay hydrated.
I don't know. People might appreciate you doing a webinar with a buzz, Elizabeth.
I mean, I this morning I had I don't know, my coffee was extra today. I was
You
in
got the
a,
old
oh yeah,
with the
I was in
caffeine shakes.
a partner call. It was awesome. It was fantastic, but my passion was really on point. Let's just say that.
Oh man. Well, y'all, we used to play some music here, but the world of copyright laws and YouTube and all that kind of stuff, we can't play music for y'all anymore. We'd have to sign a record deal, and unfortunately, if you heard me sing it's a terrible idea. So, but anyway, we'll get started here in just a second.
This is a good one too. Excuse me. Gosh, I haven't been able to, oh no, frog in my throat. This is a really good one. So I'm excited to dive into it. It's top of mind
I was
for
going to say, really, if you watch the news every day, this topic is super on point. So,
exactly.
yeah, I think the team's done a good job putting this one together for us. So. Yeah, and really thank everybody that's joining today. One of the things that we've seen as a company is, digital is one of those worlds where, I'm from kind of old school traditional media. We used to train on things once, and then you push those salespeople out to sell. Elizabeth, you handed the frog to me. Uh, you push them off to sell, and that's pretty much it, almost a one-time thing. But the world of digital is definitely evolving, and it's the reason these conversations and webinars are so important. So, really appreciate everybody joining who's in the room with us today.
I say let's get it started. We got a
All right,
lot to cover. Keep it
rock on.
exciting, and it's lunchtime somewhere in the US.
There you go. Can hear the stomachs grumbling already. So yeah,
Right.
let's rock and roll.
All right, y'all. How media companies and agencies can navigate economic uncertainty. As Ken and I both already referenced, this is top of mind for everyone, whether it's going to the grocery store, getting your kids ready for college or graduation parties, and things are just looking a little bit different, right? Speaking of graduation, Ken's daughter just graduated high school, which is awesome, and I know a lot of us are in the insanity of Maycember, as what it's lovingly called, with a lot of events and stuff. But today's meeting, or webinar, we're really going to be diving into, some insights into what's happening right now from an economy standpoint, a 30,000-foot view, because a lot of what we're experiencing now, we might have a little PTSD about what this kind of felt like during COVID, right? During those initial few months of talk about times of uncertainty, we literally didn't know what side was up at that point. Definitely different now, but there definitely is change too. So, fact versus fiction, excuse me. The core issue, really understanding the why behind this fear and uncertainty, and then what, of course, local businesses want during this time. How can we really elevate our support and advocacy for these local businesses to ensure that, that they have a sustainable model moving forward? They've got to be thinking about the future, not just about business today. And that can be a hard conversation, right? That can be a really difficult, heart to heart to have with the client. We'll dive into application, of course, and then 5 steps, tips and tricks, keeping ahead of your advertisers' uncertainty, but also making sure they know that they can absolutely lean on you as their partner, as their marketing consultant, as their media advocate to really help guide them through these times. And I should introduce myself and Ken. And I think I also spoke out of turn. I think Ken was supposed to introduce this. We're just flying by the seat of our pants here. I'm Elizabeth Bernberg, Senior Director of Business Development, joined by the amazing Ken Campbell, our Business Development Manager. We have spent a ton of time, obviously, in digital media. We're both former Adcelerant partners, so absolutely love what we do. We are recording today's webinar, and we will be sharing with everyone who registered, not just attended, but everyone who registered. You're going to get a link to the deck as well as a link to a YouTube page for with the recording. Share with your team members. And we want to make sure this is as conversational as possible. So please feel free at any point in time to be using that question or chat feature, whatever it is on the Zoom. I can't recall right now. We will address questions as they pop up. And if you're a current Adcelerant partner and you want to dive into this a little bit more, please make sure to reach out to your account executive and or account manager. And if you haven't worked with us, let's schedule a time to do that.
There you go. Well, Elizabeth, I know you spent some time in the radio business. So,
Mhm.
as they say in the radio biz, before we dive into the topics in the webinar, let's go ahead and pay some bills. So, how about just a brief little commercial
Right.
for the parent company here?
30,000 foot view about Adcelerant. Absolutely. Commercial, little spot check right here. But super important just to make sure for those new to this webinar, joining us for the first time, or maybe you've heard about Adcelerant, in the industry, content out there, we're pretty much anywhere and everywhere when it comes to media. We are a technology and digital marketing company, and we absolutely love what we do in terms of support, fulfillment, execution across all elements of the digital sales cycle. And our proprietary tech is literally second to none. It does oversee that entire digital sales process. And we aim to bring Madison Avenue digital tactics solutions to Main Street businesses. That's our goal, that's our mission. And we do that through the amazing and strategic relationships and partnerships that we have with our media partners. Magazines, newspapers, broadcasters, agencies, out of home, you name it. Those are the people we are working with and helping scale their business, but making sure they're also continuing to support local businesses in their marketplace. So that is Adcelerant in a nutshell. We offer the whole kit and caboodle when it comes to capabilities and tactics you see from this screen right here, all things third-party digital, but really a big part of the evolution of our tech is tied to reducing that operational drag. We want to work smarter, not harder. We want to help our partners work smarter, not harder. We want to lean into tech, into AI, into efficiencies that help really streamline workflows and processes and potentially even integrations, right? How can we manage multiple solutions within one umbrella? Case in point, that's where Adcelerant comes into play. And the amazing thing about what we do is while we are tech first and tech forward, the flame that keeps us ablaze and on fire is the amazing team members. This is still a people industry, a people business, people working with people. So that is at the core of everything we do. So that's Adcelerant. Thank you for joining us today.
No, listen, good point there, and I'm glad you kind of buttoned that up at the end with the people part because you know there's a kind of a misnomer that digital just sells itself and you don't need humans. And look, at the end of the day, I tell my partners all the time and prospective partners, at the end of the day, a digital ad is like a print ad, it's like a radio ad, it's like a TV ad. A human has to present that idea to somebody, present the solution, present a budget. There still's got to be discussion, and so to take humans out of the mix really doesn't work. So there's a reason that there's there's 200 plus people that work at Accelerant to support all those 600 plus media companies, not like 10 of us, right? It's not all tech. So,
Exactly. Well, let's I mean get into the fun part of it.
yeah.
Ken, I'm gonna have you kind of spearhead this next slide, fact versus fiction. We actually have some really interesting stats to check out.
Yeah, so this one really got my attention, and so we pulled this one in, and I think it's just very indicative. So the actual sourcing on this, I believe this is a University of Michigan study that's kind of been ongoing. I think they started at late 1960s. The snapshot you guys are seeing here is basically from 2001 forward to today. So what you're measuring here, orange line versus green line, is the expectations of consumers versus actual sentiment, right? And you can see, obviously, a really interesting crossover there. 2020 COVID hits, those things sort of come into line. And then people just have kind of remained pretty pessimistic actually the last 4 years. If you look at the orange line, and there's a wide gap there in between the consumer's expectation about the economy versus how it's actually performed. So we've actually way outperformed on that index, actual economic conditions. But again, at the end of the day, what you guys are facing as you go down to Main Street USA, talk to your mom and pops. I mean, they reflect the community around them, right, Elizabeth?
Yep.
So, if they're hearing pessimism from their customers, that can give them a little uncertainty. But the reality is part of our job as media professionals is to point out fact from fiction, right? Reality versus actual expectations. And so the reality is the economy's actually doing pretty daggum good. So again, I think this is something we can take to the street as media professionals in our sales lives and just point out to people, hey, it's not as bad as the chatter. And that's just it bores out in the numbers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so so again, kind of going from there, Elizabeth, let's kind of dive into that. So kind of get into this section. How do we navigate dealing with these fears, the uncertainties and doubts? That FUD is interesting. It reminds me of Elmer Fudd, but anyway, it's a whole
I was just going to say, talk about an acronym, FUD. We've been using this a lot, actually, internally at Accelerant, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, because it's important to address this with your clients to open up the conversation. That's really when you're able to break down barriers to really get to the heart of what they're experiencing as a business owner, new obstacles that maybe don't really apply to this quote unquote uncertain times in the economy, right? It could be something else. So being able to at first just have this conversation and really understand why the economy is really generating this fear, because these are the objections that you've probably heard about. And these are the objections that we've heard about as well. And guess what? They all are just a fantastic opportunity to ask more questions and understand more about the why and the insides of their business and what kind of impact they are truly seeing, as opposed to just a very big blanket statement like consumers aren't spending money right now, or we just have no cash to spend, or something else has happened into my friend of mine who owns this company down the street, and it's making me really nervous, and I gotta hold tight with my marketing budget right now, or maybe I've got to reduce it or eliminate it. It is our job as marketing consultants, again, as their ambassadors of even their brand and being their own advocates, we've got to understand the why behind this. So I want you all to think about, this as we go through these slides, think about the questions that your sales team is currently asking clients when they come back with these objections, right? Are we just taking it at face value and going, okay, yep, sounds good. Thanks, me too, bye. Or are we really taking the time to dive in and say, we've been hearing that from other clients, and I understand your business, your customer, your model is different. And I want to understand a little bit more about why you're saying consumers aren't spending money with you. Tell me a little bit more about what's happened with your day-to-day traffic, or maybe with your day-to-day closes. What does your website traffic look like as opposed to your brick and mortar traffic? So the key takeaway here is make sure you are taking those objections and you're diving a little bit deeper to understand the why, because they're also wanting to talk about it. They're looking for a solution too, but their go-to, it's easier to say no than to really start unpacking everything, right?
I love this whole conversation because you and I are both former ad directors, ad managers. We've had salespeople answer to us, and if the Tums are going to go around in the room here for the ad directors or the sales managers that are in here, what they don't like to feel in their stomach is that their reps are going to take that objection just at face value and not be willing to engage. And I think that's the whole point of your discussion here is like we have to empower our reps to have the confidence to address those fears head on, not just say, oh, well, you're pulling back on your budget. Okay, that's fine. I'll see you next month. No, we got to dig deeper.
100%. That is at the core of what we do. That is our job. We have to remain curious, quoting Ted Lasso, one of my favorite shows ever. Be curious, right? Not judgmental. Because if you're taking what they say also at face value, it's a little judgmental. You're saying, all right,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, see if we can be better, because I have a feeling we can be better together and I can help you get there. All right, disarming fear. A lot of this is just the same in terms of how we would approach really any other sale. Address misaligned expectations. So if you're going back in to reconnect with the client, maybe you're reviewing reporting, right? Let's talk about creative. Let's look at the call to action. Let's look at the imagery. Let's look at that landing page. Let's look at the analytics and the data. What kind of story are we putting together and where could we be better? Right? Again, this is about doubling down on that relationship, working collectively with your advertiser to address those potential misaligned expectations. Maybe we're marketing, a service that isn't kind of top of mind right now for clients. Maybe we need to change our strategy, address their fear. We need to be empathetic and understand, obviously, where they're coming from, but provide solutions and be that hopeful beacon of how they can really see themselves and their business being sustainable in the next 3 months, 6 months, year, and in the future, and so on. And then which of our solutions, your solutions, solve their problem, right? We don't want to be talking about tactics, and we never want to be talking about products and, oh, here's then the geofencing that's going to help bring in more foot traffic into your place of business. Maybe that's how we should spend your marketing budget. That would cause me as an SMB more anxiety if someone came in and just started talking about that, because I don't understand what that really means. What I understand is more sales, more people coming to my website, more people coming into my place of business. And how I accomplish that, that's my marketing consultant's problem. That's not mine. I'm giving them the money to do what they need to do. So make sure you are also bringing cohesive solutions and strategies that will address their pain points, their obstacles, and get creative with it, right? Maybe you've ran a geofencing campaign in the past over competitors, but shoot, we maybe have seen some lift from other areas or maybe new industries that we could start using and tapping into a new audience. Make sure you are always kind of pushing the envelope yourself as a seller to really hit the nail on the head with the right solution to present to a client.
Amen.
Overcoming objections, concerns. I mean, I just talked about this. We don't need to beat this horse.
No, the only thing I would add to this is, and I actually include this. I love the analogy of a pendulum in the sales process. Use it all the time. One of the things we can't do as salespeople is kind of bulldoze over our customers' concerns and objections, right? So, if you guys as salespeople end up in front of a business owner and they've got maybe a little bit of that negativity kind of rocking here towards the negative side of the pendulum swing. If you try to reach out and grab it and disagree with them, we know what happens when you just openly disagree with your customer. That pushes them away. That doesn't draw them in. So, the analogy of the pendulum swing is we have to acknowledge the fear. Doesn't mean you need to validate it, because as we saw with the graph that kind of started this earlier section, there is some misalignment between what's really going on and what the expectations are. We have to find a way to address that, but we got to kind of let that pendulum swing away from us. Don't worry, you're not going to lose the sale, but acknowledge that fear, but then try to bring them back to reality, and that pendulum will swing back to you as a salesperson. And hopefully what you get right there in the next graphic is you get the sale.
Exactly. No, Ken, you bring up a really great point because, when we talk to partners, we're talking to partners all day long, media companies, and, margin is a big point of conversation. And people are going, well, I need to make sure I maximize my margins. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and they say it's just getting harder and harder, and we need to, make sure we're getting, I need 50, 60, 70%. Oof. With third party digital, that can be tough. So a lot of our responses to stuff like that is, are you wanting to see 50% on $1 million or 30% on $2 million? Hmm. So even looking at it through a different lens, and Ken, I love the pendulum analogy here, can really help turn that objection into an opportunity, that pathway to sale.
Yes.
But this is so, so crucial here. With your conversations, and even if they tell you, they telling your AEs, we don't need to meet. We don't need to meet. I don't want to be marketing, or I want to reduce it, or we don't need to schedule a meeting. Man, take that meeting. You absolutely, even if you've got 15 minutes, you can say, I understand where you're coming from. I hear you. You've got to make sure you hear them, that they feel like their voice is being heard and you are listening. But man, giving them also some time, 15 minutes. I value you and your business and what you mean to this, to our local marketplace, to our local economy. And I think even just 15 minutes of us just kind of understanding a little bit more about the struggle, the obstacles, the opportunity, ways where we can maybe approach this differently could be of great value to you. And I'd love to be
They've
able
got
to.
to, yeah, that's they've got to feel before you can get to the sales pitch, they got to feel heard. And like I
Exactly.
said, if any of those concerns are out there, they've got to feel that. And then, and then maybe you get to the sales pitch. So
Exactly. All right, Casey, what do local businesses want during this uncertainty? So we've talked about, the approach to, addressing some of their initial questions, how to ideally break down some of those anxiety
yep.
barriers, that pendulum. Let's dive into, maybe some of the stats in terms of what people are looking for.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've seen now this the source here is Challengers, but I've seen this very similar data. So I know this data here is solid. Burrell and Associates, who's a good partner of Accelerants on the data and analytics side, also does extensive polling of small and medium sized businesses to get their sentiments, media projections, et cetera. But the deep dive here, and the thing that should really jump out at everybody on this webinar is, I think salespeople oftentimes think in their minds that when they're in front of a business owner, that little orange portion of the pie there is what it's all about. And this polling here, this isn't from sales rep, this is from the business owners, right? So the business owners are telling us that the vast majority, the most important thing, their North Star of what they want when they speak to a media sales professional is they want to know, they want to lean into your experience. That's what they are looking for. That's what they want. Yeah, do they want to know a little bit about your company brand? Yeah. Yeah. Less than 20%. Do they really want to sit there and go crazy negotiating on price and debating value? Well, no, that's kind of the smallest part of it. And then the product side, well, once they trust you, they'll get to the product side, but they want to lean in on your sales experience. And you characterized it earlier. We are, if we're doing our jobs right out there in whatever city you're in the country, what they're looking for, what they want us to be, is their trusted media professional. And when you go to the next slide, this is actually reinforced. This is what they want. 1, 2, 3, and 4 here all really lean into the professionalism that is required and them wanting to lean into your knowledge. So they want to hear the alternatives. They want you to be, to provide counsel and advice and consultation. So again, kind of circling back to where we started up there with some of those previous slides, right? You know, I think sometimes, and you mentioned it earlier as well. I think sometimes as salespeople, we want to get right to what the pitch is. But man, sometimes you gotta till that soil a little bit with the customer. And so part of that is being heard. Part of that is providing advice. Part of that is being fearless enough to say, yeah, I know you're feeling a little bit pessimistic, but did you know all the economic indicators? They're for the last 5 years they've been out of whack compared to what's actually happening in the economy. So that fear can cost you money, and I want to make sure it doesn't cost you money. I want to make sure we help you grow your business and make money. So again, all of those three, four, even the bonus points here, you know, all of those really factor into that kind of core, which is they want your advice, they want your counsel. Lean into that, have confidence, stick your chest out, flex. I mean, you can flex, you can give them a little gun show, but that's what we've got to do. So, again, this is it. I mean, they again, the misnomer in the sales world is that we have to come in and all we need to be spitting is media solutions. And the reality is when business owners are asked these questions, this is what they actually want. And so I think sometimes, again, I think sometimes there's a hesitation as a salesperson. You don't want to overstep. But again, we show you this to tell everybody here, have the confidence to go in and be what they want you to be. They want teaching, they want coaching, they want you to kind of challenge ideas in a polite way, obviously, right?
Totally.
Again,
Well,
you
and
can't bulldoze them, but again, they want these intellectual discussions.
absolutely. And, the big takeaway too, especially for those who are, visiting or learning about AdCellerant for the first time, this is how we support you. This is what we're able to bring to the table. So your team, your management, they're not feeling so isolated or like they're on an island trying to tackle, this because it can be kind of overwhelming. Wow, we're dealing with our own stuff, at the station or at the publishing house or here at the agency. And now I've got to go, make sure we've got the right resources and support ourselves to do what we need to do to continue to help our clients. That's a tall order. When you're working with AdCellerant, that's what we bring to the table day in and day out, the coaching, the teaching, our academy, industry trends, guidelines, best practices. We can tap into our own business intelligence and tell you, hey, you're talking to an HVAC client that's saying, that they've seen a real dip in their business. Man, we've been seeing a big influx in orders from our partners across the country. And this is the product mix that they've been using. I wonder if, we need to maybe look at the strategy that the clients used in the past and maybe rework some of those solutions we have in that media plan. There are different ways for us to approach this, but teaching, coaching, and challenging and having that resource yourself, that's exactly what we bring to the table.
Yeah, and again, again, I think just this statement here just reinforces what we're talking about. We've got to, we have to acknowledge those concerns. But again, as their trusted media professional, that's our job to come in, present the strategy, present, what we think, how we think those marketing dollars need to be best allocated, and make it part of the conversation. Again, don't run away from it. Don't fear it. And when you roll to the next slide, I think there's some really strong points, and I'll kind of zip through this, but I want you kind of anecdotally to talk about,
Yeah.
of course, most of our partners operate behind a white label, so can't necessarily name the company. But I know specifically during COVID when things got pretty scary and wonky. We had some partners that really leaned into what you're seeing on screen here, y'all, which is the opportunity where if some of those other small and medium-sized businesses are not getting good advice from their media professionals, and they do start to pull back, the huge opportunity that can present for your customers who you counsel to kind of do the right thing, which means, as people pull back, well, what happens? Well, the noise level in the marketplace goes down. Okay, their loss can be your customer's gain. Noise level goes down, gives you an opportunity to make a bigger splash in the marketplace, reposition your brand, boost your share of mind again, because maybe the noise has gone down. Some people have pulled back, but if your people are not, they're going to find that that's going to drive stability. We got a couple case studies that we'll dive into later, and then oftentimes what we'll see, are deals, price drops, price cuts, specials to kind of keep things going. Your job is to, again, lean into what's going on in the marketplace, help your customers grab those opportunities. And again, Ian, I know during COVID, we actually saw this first and foremost with some of our partners who decided, okay, no, we're not going to run for the hills and hide. We're going to take a more aggressive approach. Can you speak a little bit to some of that?
Absolutely. It was a publishing partner of ours. And to echo what you just said, they leaned into not only the training and support that we provided, we even did some webinars, some lunch and learns, got people coming, bring your own lunch. It was COVID. We're all doing it virtually, right? But come and join us and let's talk about what obstacles you're facing, some of your anxieties. Let's also talk about what we're seeing and provide solutions and an open dialogue on how we, as your local publishing house, your local newspaper magazine, can really be again a resource to you so your customers can continue to rely on you. Remember, we're all customers to some fabulous, fantastic local businesses and organizations. I rely on them, right? And it is, I want them to be healthy and I want them to be there because they bring a lot of, I mean, value and excitement and just a great culture to our, community. And it's so incredibly important that their livelihood is intact because they mean something to me, right?
Yep.
So just like we, as a citizen, as a purchasing customer, we care about, what's happening with these local businesses. As the seller of a media brand and organization, we're needing to make sure that we're continuing to help drive that stability message along with even ourselves, right? That, hey, we're in this together with you. We are doing great things to engage with the community. So while we're talking about a partner right now that, did some fantastic work with their local advertisers, they also challenged those advertisers to further put themselves out into the community, right? Double down on those efforts, whether it was social media or finding new ways to, deliver the products and or services. It's the time to be creative. And guess what? The ones that did do that, that did really take the bull by the horns, for lack of a better saying, I always screw sayings up, they were able to come out of that time more successful ahead of their competitors. They had a larger saturation in the marketplace. They were able to win over new audiences because that noise, they were able to cut through it because there wasn't a ton of noise at the beginning. So it literally was, as much as it was a storm, it was a perfect storm for those advertisers who were willing and able and had the foresight to say, we're going to do this and we're going to do it right. And we've got the support of our local media partner, and our media partners got the local support of Adcelerant. They were able to be successful.
Yeah, I actually ran into the CEO of that company that we're talking about at a conference, and he was very, very proud of the fact that number one, they actually grew revenues during COVID, didn't shrink, and they didn't have to let one employee go. And he completely credits the work that we did on their behalf, and the creativity and all of the above. So, um, so kind of in that vein. I'll do this one really quick, but this is one of my favorite sides. I've actually used it in a few webinars, y'all, because yeah, I think one of the things that we all have to recognize as salespeople is it's tough out there. It's not an easy job. Um, and I think sometimes salespeople, we walk into these businesses, the business maybe has been there for many, many years. Um, I love this data because it proves something. And so this is me being a little amateur psychologist for the salespeople in the room. Okay, sit down. You're good enough. You're strong enough. And gosh darn it, you're the expert. I mean, look at this data here. It's crazy. So the pie chart on the left, basically what this is saying, y'all, is 86% of business owners, less than 10 employees, consider themselves either a novice or just mid-level at marketing their business. Does that sound like somebody you should be intimidated by? That is somebody that is looking for your advice. This just reinforces everything we've been talking about. They want and need your advice. And look, even the larger companies, 10 plus employees, you're still talking about 65% over here on the other side, where again, they consider themselves either a novice at marketing or kind of a mid-level. So when you walk in the door, again, I kind of use that analogy of, poking your chest out or flexing your guns. I mean, you guys need to go in there with that confidence and swagger because again, they will listen. You show up with confidence, they will listen. So I love this.
Same, same. And it goes into approaching the conversation too, knowing that, hey, they consider themselves novices or maybe mid-level at best. This just sets you up for diving into these.
Right. So again, as far as that sales conversation is concerned, let's kind of go to the next step. So we know the uncertainties out there, E. So what are some of the conversations we can have to bust through that, to reinforce, to create certainty where that uncertainty might be swirling?
Creating certainty from uncertainty. What are we certain about when it comes to digital? Man, the data, rhetorical question here, right? The data is the surest, the greatest, the proof in the pudding. It is going to be the cornerstone of your of your conversations, of your incremental revenue wins, and how you really open up potential opportunities with an advertiser. Measurable data and media that is trackable in a dashboard, right?
Yep.
Data and analytics and reporting. This is the new wave currency, right? Of what we do in media. This is really what separates, talk about old school and, throwing spaghetti at a wall and seeing what sticks, to understanding what sticks because we see the information and the data, and then we're able to leverage that appropriately to continue to drive the needed results in that ROI that the client's looking for. So here you've got just an amazing snapshot of our killer pedestrian, user-friendly, total aggregated reporting dashboard that gives you that full story of success, completely customizable. It's amazing. And this also creates ease and kind of a comfort level with the client because people want to see that things are working and moving the needle for them, right? They ideally should be seeing increased traffic on their Google Analytics. They should be seeing, more people come into their brick and mortar building, right? An increase in sales. Of course, those are kind of the high level ones. But this is a great way, especially with digital, when so much is kind of running behind the scenes and more than likely the owner's not being served an ad because they're not the target audience. This enables them to see the actual data. They can see it, they can feel it, they know that it is doing its job. And hey, if it's not, the beauty of digital is we can make those optimizations, right? We can ebb and flow and adjust as needed to ensure we're maximizing exposure. So,
Well, and E, I know back to that partner example we
yeah,
used. I know that was one of the things they did extremely well. And y'all don't get me wrong, like I know we got people on this call from many different types of traditional media. We are not suggesting that that digital is necessarily a replacement for your traditional media. You got to sell the core product. You got to sell that print ad. You got to sell those radio and TV spots, whatever. But again, in a world of uncertainty, here's another saying: a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, right? So if they do pull back on anything, sometimes digital is that opportunity to get those, maintain the relationship, keep the revenue flowing. It is highly measurable. The superpower is the customization and the ability to pivot. And so if we can lean into that, we maintain the relationship, and then people see again that index, they see everything's cool, and we can kind of keep those dollars flowing. But I know we'll kind of get into some of those industry examples next, E.
no, that was a great call out because absolutely, this is especially in these times because your business matters, right? As a station, as a newspaper, as a magazine, as an agency, you've got to have a sustainable model so you can be here and continue to support your clients. We've got to make sure we're focusing on core as well as these other capabilities, right? It's not about switch business that supports you and your advertiser. This is a complementary solution. This is going after the bigger opportunity and ensuring that we have ideally a full funnel strategy for the client, right?
Yep.
We're able to connect with their customers wherever they are in that life cycle. So who to pitch? I know everyone loves like, okay, who are the ones right now that are going, how do I do this? This is stressing me out. And we're reducing our marketing spend or we're having a reorg. Oh God, who's heard a reorg recently? From a client. These are the ones that we've actually been seeing here at AdCellerant in terms of information that we've gathered from partner calls that we've been on. These are the categories and advertiser groups that you should be kind of talking to right now. Hospitals, clinics, mental health services, physical therapy, chiropractors, health is very top of mind across the board, no matter what age group you're in, demo, no matter what geographical area you're in, that is a huge category. Obviously, so is financial. We're wanting to make sure that we've got the money to send our kids to college and that we're investing properly and that our budget's managed accordingly. Speaking about personal stuff here, but this is still a real need for me as a customer of a financial institution, right? So these are other categories that need your insight, that need your consulting, that need your guidance because their clients have those needs right now as well.
Yep.
B2B services too, consulting, SaaS products, tech continues to be just this evolving universe, right? It is in continuous metamorphosis. Say that 5 times. And it is really just something that is always going to have a need from a marketing standpoint. There is an audience there that it serves. Definitely keep those advertisers and companies as a potential hit list for you and your sellers.
Yeah, but before you jump on to the next slide, I do want to kind of put a finer point on B2B. I feel like when I was on the publishing side, this was a lost opportunity for me, to be honest with you. Now that I've learned more about digital, I realize the capabilities to be able to service business to business. And I know a lot of times with a local newspaper, local radio station, kind of traditional media, a lot of times we just really think about the B2C. So it's about serving consumers in our market. But you may have a company that's, I had a company that was a big law firm. They really didn't do a lot of business in our area because they specialize in like immigration and stuff, but they were based in my county. Well, I, they obviously didn't want to advertise in my local newspaper, but man, they did need digital advertising. So y'all need to think about, look around your market. Don't just focus on retail and consumer businesses. Look at who's headquartered in your markets because those people are consuming digital marketing at an increasing rate. They got big dollars, bigger budgets to spend. You can go after them with the proper resources.
Great, great call out. Know your backyard. Love that.
Yep.
Here's some other ones, of course, retail, food and drink, home services, 'tis the season right now, obviously summer months. But they're categories that are literally on your docket list right now. They're on your hit list, they're with your AEs. Let's make sure we're reaching out to them with some good cadence. We're in front of them, we have meetings, and we're sharing the good news. Now, how
Hey,
to pitch
hey,
them? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, one thing on that previous slide,
Yeah.
I'm going to I like to throw out a little, old guy, 30 years in the media sales business, a little nugget every now and then. Um, Food and drink, obviously good spenders. Man, take your customers out to lunch. I was in my local market with an accelerant partner and one of his customers a couple weeks ago. We're having lunch. They're talking about his budget, and he starts to throw out a little bit of this economic uncertainty stuff. And I look around because we're at lunch and the restaurant's packed. I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure people don't have money to spend? Because this joint's packed. So, little nugget there. If you can, take your customers out. They'll let their guard down. They can see in a packed restaurant that people are spending money. Makes that budgetary conversation a little bit easier. I promise y'all. Give it a shot.
Love that. Love, love. All right. So what do they want from local media sales reps? This is additional fantastic, wonderful information from Burrell. And we've
Yep.
already touched on this, right? But this is really the time to continue to be proactive, be creative, new ideas, think about potential new audiences or emerging audiences. Make sure your AEs are also reading, some industry trade content, right? Online, print, wherever they can find it. Maybe it's about, categorically about some of their clients and the industry, or just at large about digital media. That's
Yep.
going to be just a gold mine of just getting creative ideas, right? We're not going to get those creative ideas from AI. That comes from us. That
Right.
comes from people who are reading the content, understanding the context of our advertisers, and then taking it a step further. So that's really, of course, being familiar with the advertiser's business and the educational opportunities. We talked about that earlier too, the education and training, the coaching, and then the challenging. Making sure that, we're always talking about best practices, and why, potentially reducing your marketing spend is really not a good strategy for business well-being and business, kind of safety net for a business. It
Yep.
actually can have the complete opposite effect. But make sure you're looking at data, you're looking at, business intelligence to really help guide those conversations. You're taking educational either classes or tapping into the Ad Seller Academy, hint, hint, for a lot of those resources and training opportunities. Seminars like this, there are oodles out there that are free. Get involved in them, right? Because again, that'll come back to interesting conversation points, questions to ask your advertiser, because they're going to look to you for that guidance, right? So again, more ideas for you to bring to the table.
Well, not perfect little segue into, kind of a couple examples. And look, at the end of the day, there are dozens, probably hundreds of examples that we could use of businesses who, again, took a different approach when they felt like there was some economic uncertainty. We pulled out a couple here that I kind of liked. This is kind of your big box example, what TJ Maxx did. We had the Great Recession, 2008, 2009. A lot of advertisers pulled back. Obviously, they took a completely different approach, ended up growing their business tremendously. 75% of our shoppers in 2009 were brand new people. They ended up driving a net increase in sales where some other companies saw shrink. So again, we're not counseling you to go downstream to Main Street USA and give bad ideas. These
Yeah.
ideas are tested and true. Eve, you roll to the next one. Here's even one kind of on a local level, that again, very, very, very similar approach. This salon, same thing during this recession. Obviously, we're not in a recession right now. We're just kind of in a little wonky time in terms of uncertainty. But this was during full-blown recession. They were able to accomplish these things. So, where all their other competitors pulled back, again, what we talked about earlier, the noise gets reduced. Okay, that's an opportunity. That's a blinking green light for your customers. So if we can counsel them to do the right thing, they can see results like this. The stat that jumped out at me here when I was on the newspaper side, I had a lot of hair salons that were customers. Obviously, I was not a customer, but they were my customers. And
I was.
fabulous. The,
Yeah.
the one thing I did notice here that really like smacked me was because I know January was always a struggle in that business. Like everybody spends all their money at Christmas, and then all the salons and spas struggle in January. These guys coming out of a recession actually drove their sales up 10% over the prior year. Blew my mind. So again, there's case study after case study after case study of these types of anecdotal this evidence out there. Lean into it. We need to lean into it and give good counsel.
And we really already touched on this, so I'm gonna shimmy through this. But again, these are the key pillars of what to really focus on, from those creative ideas. Think about incentives, giveaways, contests, loyalty programs, getting your advertisers involved, video demos, just new ways to engage with the client. I love Ken's earlier kind of point on getting them out in the community, going out for lunch. I mean, that's nice. Or shoot a coffee. That's just a different also atmosphere, which also can change the mindset as well. The educational events, of course, and then really, the success, and we've seen it firsthand. So while we showed you those were national case studies, not, tied to ad seller and campaigns that we were running. Those are just, national ideas, and even one on a local level when there have been these economic wonky times. But we firsthand have also seen amazing success because our partners have seen success by using and tapping into these kind of go-to strategies to really ensure that they were supporting their local advertisers. So our average partner right now adds 8 new advertisers in 2 months. That's fantastic. Think about your own stats right now. How many net new accounts do you have on a monthly basis? How many do you want to have? Right? So fun little stuff to think about. Our average partner makes 6 deals and books 4 appointments in the first month. How many deals and appointments right now do you have booked with your sellers?
Yep.
What does
Training,
the
gotta
end of
have
May look
training.
like?
Yep. Training and
Right.
support. Gotta have it.
Exactly. So really, while you are at again, the cornerstone of that support for those local advertisers, you have the support of AdCellerant to be there as your go-to partner, not a vendor, to help ensure your company has a sustainable model to continue to do what you do best for your advertisers in the community.
Well, and these tactics work, right?
Yep.
Um, we've seen it. We don't have 5 partners. We don't have 20 partners. We've got close to 600 now. So a lot of these have been tried and true and tested. Here's a good example here of you guys can see the numbers on screen. I mean, we did some kind of co-hosted webinars, really tried to engage with the business community. There was obviously a lot of interest, and it drove deals. Bottom line, it drives deals. So, now is not the time to pull back. Now is the time to be bold and charge forward, sit down, strategize. Again, lock arms with your digital media partner. Hopefully that's us, and let's go.
It's time to make some, there's another fun acronym, BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals.
Goals. There you go.
All
Oh,
right, so we are wrapping up. I'm gonna kick these last few slides over to Ken. These are the kind of the tips, right, to keep ahead of advertisers' uncertainty. And I think these are really, just the fantastic takeaways after 2 bobbling heads talking to you for the last 52 minutes. This is going to be what you should absolutely remember and take back to your teams, or think about if you're a seller, as you look at your desk and book a business. KC, walk us through these tips.
yeah, I got some tips here, and in fact, E, while I'm doing that, take a look. We got a couple questions in the comments. I'll let you
Oh, I
kind of
love it.
dive in and unpack those while I'm kind of going through these. But yeah, just 5 quick tips. And again, I think this kind of reinforces and recaps some of what we've talked about already. But again, first tip there, just stabilize, reinforce the core brand. This is the time for it. Again, all those reasons that we kind of outlined earlier. Find a way to talk to the customer about, how do we take advantage of this time? How do we reinforce into the marketplace what your core product or services are, and come up with some creative campaigns. Again, messaging matters. Our third tip there. I mean, it does. And again, this is where I said, kind of at the outset, y'all, at the end of the day, hey, automation is not everything, right? this world is still a place where one human presents an idea to another one. We've got to come up with a strategy. We've got to come up with a message. AI can't handle all that. Sometimes it's two people going back and forth and coming up with something that works.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then again, what we've seen, we've had partners do this. Again, kind of alluded to it earlier. Hey, come up with some fun things. Come up with loyalty programs. Come up with, if there has been a little bit of pullback, okay, well, hey, if you'll dive in right now, then we will reward you in Q4 with X, Y, and Z. Again, I think this is where sales managers and salespeople need to get together. Again, just call out the elephant in the room, and again, come up with some creative ideas. And again, I kind of our last tip, and we tried to give you all some ponds earlier. Fish where the fish are. If we're seeing, and again, that's where I think you can lean into a partner like us. We have these hundreds of thousands of campaigns flowing across our platform with all these media partners from around the country. We can kind of see what's hot. So hey, lean on us. Hey, what categories are really blowing up right now? And again, we're seeing what we noted earlier, some of those financial services, bar and restaurants still seem to be doing well. Those other categories, healthcare just seems to be almost like completely recession proof. They just continue to spend and grow. So, fish where the fish are, get into those ponds. But like I said, feel free to lean on on your digital partner to kind of get those recommendations, help build the proposals, present the case studies of what's working, and help grow that in your marketplace. Yeah, and then again, I think look, this is just sales fundamentals here, y'all. And again, we always like to kind of finish these webinars where we began, so we're ending where we began, which is the importance of everybody in this room as we get in front of those our customers to do the right thing. So, be genuine, be sincere, listen, be empathetic. Reconnect with those people, stay in front of them, do not relent, get them talking, empathize, and then work on solutions together. Again, all of the data that we've gone through today, y'all, demonstrates that that's what those business owners are looking for out of you. So lean into our resources, but again, show that confidence, and be that consultant that they need.
Mic drop. Yes, all of the above. We've got some questions here. The last couple minutes, we'll round it out. We had an anonymous attendee ask, what's a comparable solution when you're a remote company? Since we can't take clients out to eat, what would be a good alternative? Great question. We've done this several times because we're remote and we're working with partners across the US. Sending $5 Starbucks cards saying next coffee's on me, or let's have a virtual coffee. That's fantastic. I've sent popcorn tubs before as well, saying I'd like to see if I can pop by virtually. Any way to, and people love food. Who doesn't love food? If you're able to then send that to your client's office, a little snack that their team can munch on, that goes a long way. Don't also forget the importance of handwritten notes. You guys, those little things, or we might think of them now as even time consuming, man, they matter more than ever. That goes a long way after you've met with someone virtually. If you send them a follow-up handwritten card, that's huge. That is like comparable, if not better, than taking them out to lunch. Talk about the sincerity behind that. So those are just some fantastic ideas.
Yeah, love that. Love that.
All right, let's see. We've got another question here. We often hear from local businesses that they want to advertise but don't have budgets large enough to meet ad C minimums. In these cases, would you recommend focusing on local SEO instead? Short answer to that is hopefully we're obviously able to support any size budget, especially when it comes to programmatic. Monthly impression minimums, 40,000 impressions. At a retail CPM of $10, you're looking at $400. Hopefully that should be something that a local advertiser can get behind. We also want to make sure we're not just taking money to then blow it away in the wind, that we're optimizing it and managing it accordingly so we generate results. So be mindful too of clients that say, I've got $100 and I want to run, a campaign, and they might be expecting the world, and that's not necessarily what we can generate out of that. So again, more questions is going to be incredibly important, and making sure the level of expectations are set and that they understand what potential results would happen with the smaller budget-based campaign.
Yep.
Local SEO is also phenomenal. So I love that you mentioned that. That is a fantastic solution to help your local businesses get found when people are searching for their products and services on Google, right? It's tied to that Google business profile, the little 3-pack. That is incredibly cost effective, starting at like what, $200 is our suggested retail price point. I think our wholesale price point's around $100. You guys, that is a game changer. Great, easy add-on. Absolutely something that every single advertiser should have in their marketing strategy.
Yep. Well, and I agree with that, Ian, and I think local SEO, great suggestion. But look, at the end of the day, what I think is, yeah, at 40,000 minimum, again, you're talking about, depending on how you price it. If you price it at $8 a thousand, it can be, $320. If you did 10, it's 400. We should be able to, as professionals, kind of help quantify that for the customer. And it may be a situation where you got to do a little trial with them. Hey, give me 90 days, and look, I'm not diminishing the fact I've been in front of those businesses where they, $400 is a ton of money to them, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, we also have to sell the superpower that we mentioned earlier in the webinar, which is, the measurable results that digital marketing affords the advertiser. And so I think we got to have that tough conversation, maybe ask them to stretch that budget a little bit more, and then kind of lean into those results and pivot month to month. Second half of that question there, they asked kind of about service side of businesses. So, oh, well, it just,
Oh, that was me. I just totally like clicked it off. Oh my goodness.
oh, there I
All
go.
right.
I got it. So that what the second half of the question was, what if it was a service business? So not remote, no retail storefront. They've said they've had several clients hesitate to pursue the local SEO because they don't have a physical storefront, makes it more challenging. Okay, here's the way I would answer that, guys. Um, I think for service businesses, the local SEO side is even more important, because service businesses are tracking phone calls, website activity, form fills, right? That's how they get their business. No one's coming up and knocking on their business door. So anything you can do to invest in a better position, optimize your Google search position, local SEO is a great investment. Now, I think what you have to do with that service business is you got to pair that together with an aggressive digital marketing campaign. And fortunately, between third-party email, first-party data retargeting, all the targeted ads in the programmatic space that are out there, people, that are searching for these services, they're data-based. We can reach those consumers and drive them to your website, but we want to be able to track those results and benchmark. And local SEO, having a dashboard, being able to see that the marketing campaign is pushing the activity on the local SEO side of things, that's absolutely crucial. So I think it's even more important for service businesses, not less.
I would also say too, organic SEO is a big one, especially if they're remote and maybe they float from a lot of different markets.
Yep.
That is also going to be an incredibly important solution. It's like paying the mortgage on your home. You own that elevated ranking and exposure on Google, as
Yep.
opposed to renting it through search engine marketing. So definitely consider organic SEO as well. Love the questions, you guys.
Well, guys, great hour. Looks like most of y'all stayed with us. That's awesome. Hopefully got some good insights there. You guys had our QR there up for 3 or 4 minutes. So if you wanted to book a demo, you can reach us. But no, really enjoyed talking today. And so, like I said, guys, just go out there and keep fighting the good fight.
Cheers, you all. Have a great day.
See ya.